Welcome to Shorty SuperCoach, and as you can see, a bit of new technology from the fellas. Got Camtasia on board, and I thought today I'd just use this as a bit of a test to do. Obviously, testing out this program and get my mug on screen as opposed to the podcast, but also get a bit of an insight into the SuperCoach Draft. Had a few questions about the SuperCoach Draft and how it all works, and I do talk about selecting guys for draft at stages. So thought I'd come out here in the man cave with a bit of a Cats memorabilia and thought I'd run through a few things. So, as I said, a bit of a tester for how this all comes together, and it's new technology for me. My mate just happened to install this the other day, so I'll throw his link in as well to his channel. We do a few Geelong reviews and things like that as well. So, SuperCoach Draft, if you're not aware of it, well, obviously here it is on the screen. The main part you want to be looking at is this one here. And this is where you do all your settings for your draft league. And the purpose of it and the concept is, obviously in SuperCoach Classic, we have stacks of players and they become very popular. It's already happening now, where in draft, if you pick a bloke, he's yours for the season. Now, if you get Dangerfield with pick 1, then you get his points, no one else does. More of an advantage. And particularly if we go down here to where we have the 22 players. If you have 22 players per team and say you've got 10 mates, so a 10-team league, and all of a sudden that's a lot of players to be selecting from. So it really tests the depth. You've got to pick a good player out of the top 200, 220 sort of players in the league, the competition. So it does test you. Not everyone just gets on board SuperCoach page and AFL SuperCoach doesn't get on board what they're saying. You actually got to think about it. So I guess if you have a few mates who are interested, that's where it's a bit tricky, is getting enough mates involved. As you can see, my league over here, there's only 4 of us involved at the moment, but it is looking like there'll be about 8 or 9, hopefully 10. So that's the draft order just there. As you can see, you can randomise it. So there you go. Watto's now pick 1. Do it again. Michael's pick 1. So it changes up like that. So obviously it's not an enormous advantage, the draft selection, because as you'll see as I walk through here and the draft order just down there, snake. So that means your other options, for the record, don't even really know what they are. It'll tell me here. So there you go, you can have a read of that if you like, but snake's the one you really want to be doing. All that means is, of course, if you have pick 1, then it's snakes for the next round and you'll have the last pick, whether that's 10 or what have you. So I guess in draft terms, if you've got a 10-team league, you've got pick 1, you'll have then pick 1, then 11, and then 12, because it's snakes again. So that's pretty much how it works. I've done a few of these and I've found that it doesn't really matter where you sit in the draft order. You probably don't want to be, if there's a 10-person league, you probably don't want to get 9 or 10, because then those real top picks are gone, and it's always good to lock in a midfielder off the top that can be a captain every week. So as you can see, that's sort of how you would look when you're selecting. If you have all your mates around at one computer, you can do it off the one computer. If I scroll up here, so at the moment that draft day will probably change, 2 minutes per turn. You can change that as well, which I'll show you in a sec. Live draft, one computer. So that means we're all in the one room, use it on one computer. Old mate does his selection, then you come up, do yours. And as they get picked, they'll come off this. So, and you can now exclude players as well. And that's a new feature, but I would imagine like Tom Liberatore last year, of course, no one wanted to select him because he's out for the whole season, or a couple of years back, I should say. And you could exclude him just in case, because if your time runs out, you get the highest averaging player left on the list. So I guess if a guy was to just miss out, or if you're doing it on separate computers and his computer lagged, it's a massive disadvantage to get a guy who's out for the whole season, which did happen the other year when we did it. But I'll roll through the settings, because basically that's what draft's about, is you get your teams, you get your mates together, you pick your players, and that's your players. So it's a great advantage if you do have a good draft night. You can trade during the season, but I've found that it rarely happens. It rarely happens that you trade too much unless you get an injury. But I'll go into a few more later. So league size at the moment is 8. Of course, you can have quite a few teams. 4, 6, 8, you can get up to 18, which would be probably more for your office or something like that, but that would make it extremely difficult coming those latter stages in the round. Make this a keeper league. That's where you can do it over many seasons and have the same players. You might do a draft this year and you might pick a young gun because you think he's going to be an absolute jet in 3 years, and then you can really have an advantage. I've seen people do that. I haven't been involved in one yet. Head to head, that's pretty self-explanatory. When do you want to start? Start in round 1. Gives you other options. Well, you can start whenever you want, but that depends on your league size. This is more the interesting one, your fixture options. Now, the buys threw a bit of a curveball in with us. So, it gives the option of no finals, but of course you want to have finals, so I don't even look at those. But finals starting at round 18, skip the buys, play opponents twice. That's the one I've selected. I think it's the fairest. Play everyone twice. You don't play through the buys because that's a massive disadvantage. I don't think the buys should be taken into consideration for a draft team because you don't pick around that. You just pick the best players available. So you shouldn't be disadvantaged, I feel. A couple of other options. Finals, round 11, skip buys, play opponents once. And finals can start round 8 and you play in the buys. So, I think we always want to have finals, but depending on the size of your league, how many teams are involved, those options will change a little bit. And this is the draft setup. When the date is, obviously you can pick any date as long as it's prior to round 1, draft time. And this is a crucial one too, your squad size and field layout. Take a look here. So you can have anywhere from 12 players to the 22, and it breaks it up with each line there. Mainly we'll do 19 or 22, and I think that's probably the fairest in my opinion, because if you go 12 each, of course you might do 12 each if there are 18 teams in your league, but we generally have 8 to 10, and I think having 19 or 22 is probably the best representation of having depth in your squad, but also not bringing luck into it by just picking a guy that we haven't even really thought about. So I think that's probably the fairest resemblance to where it really is the best teams, and you get in those later draft rounds, and it is quite interesting to see who has those good picks towards the end because it really tests you. Live one computer, as I said before, you can have it live, would be live from any computer. So I've done one with SuperCoach HQ, their website. We did one where everyone was just on their own computers because obviously we're based around the country. And you're certainly watching the clock as it counts down. That's pretty intense. Auto, as far as I know, I think you can do your own pre-draft list. And in theory, if everyone did that, it would automatically pick. But it's more fun. Most of this concept is about getting your mates together, having a draft night, ordering a pizza, a few beverages, and picking teams. That's really what it's about. So live on computer. Snake, of course, I think is the best. It's the fairest way. Draft time, I would recommend probably 90 seconds, 2 minutes. In your first few rounds, 2 minutes is too long, but you can select nice and quick. But you certainly want more than 2 minutes come the end of those rounds. So it certainly does get pretty intense, and 5 minutes is just too long. So these options here, teams, trading, and gameplay settings, they're pretty straightforward, really. Of course, you're going to enable captains. Auto emergency is just a fair way to do it. Rolling lockout, well, I think everyone's used to that now. Trade waivers. That's pretty much just when guys are available after being traded or being dropped by a certain team when you can get your hands on them. And there is also a waiver, which isn't super important, but if you were to pick the same player, say I drop Jared Roughhead or something, say for whatever reason I chose to drop him, then people will get the opportunity to select him. He'd then become a free agent. So that's where it might come into play. You might want to have a couple of blokes who are getting Roughhead. You both select him. Then it comes down to the waiver. And as you can see, the waiver order policy is reverse ladder. So that would just mean, if old mate was 7th, picked Roughhead in the waiver period, but another mate picked him and he was at 5th on the ladder, well, the mate who's 7th will get him. It's just, I suppose, to advantage the lower teams a little bit. It doesn't really often happen. I think often you'll see people, think about their teams later in the week when the waiver, as you can see, is only 1 day. You can make that 1 or 2, but most people will drop a player on Sunday or Monday and he's fair game by Wednesday anyway. And I think most people, unless you're really into it, probably check their teams around that Thursday, Friday mark. But I don't mind logging on around Wednesday and trying to get me a bit of a bargain like that, because as I say, not everyone is logging onto their SuperCoach midweek, but you can certainly get a bit of an upper hand if you take it a little more seriously, as I do. What else is there really to have a look? League approved. That's just, I suppose, the league's got approved trades. It's just so you don't get one mate who's bombed out halfway through the season, just trades all his gun players to his best buddy who's third on the ladder, and then it just becomes lopsided and just multiplayer trades. As I said, you rarely get trades in general, I've found, because normally one mate will be like, oh no, he's worth more than that, and then you're like, no, he's not, and then you just come to a stalemate. So it would be rare that you trade too much, because normally in these leagues that have a fair bit of depth, then you normally don't have too many fair trades. It's normally a free agent and a guy who's out of form, and it just becomes real tough to find a level, well, an even ground, I suppose, to make a fair trade. I think that's about it. So, once you pick your sides, you'll generally start on that round 1, sometimes round 3. It just depends, as I said, how you want to set it. And then you'll just have a bit of a season drawn up, fixtures and things like that. And then you can play each other twice, whatever you want to select. So it's good fun, that's for sure. And as the season goes on, probably free agents come into play. Your first team can change quite a bit from your final team midway through the season. Often, go more for durable players. If I was picking guys, obviously in SuperCoach Classic we have trades, but for example, if there's 10 teams, 22 players each side, there's 220 players gone. If one of your starting mids, say Dame Beams, you were to pick him early and he goes down, you either hold on to him, which is a massive disadvantage in draft, or you can trade him and you'll just have a pool of free agents who are not going to be that great. So there's a lot more tactic involved with when you select a guy, whether you take the risk on him being injury prone, because you can really cop it, and it's felt much worse in draft, because in Classic, if Beams goes down, you've got everyone in the comp to choose from. In draft, if he goes down, all your other mates are sitting pretty with their midfield premiums, and you've got to really dig from the bottom. Sometimes you get lucky, but really, you're probably going to go from Beams to, if you've got a fair bit of depth in the league, probably going to have the choice of a bloke who's averaging around 85. And you just got to try and back yourself in and, try and pick a player who's maybe under their odds and see how you go. But durable is certainly the way to go. Another interesting tactic with draft is when you select positions. Most of the time, people will, in their first round and first selection, go with a midfielder. Get your cream of the crop, get your captain locked away, all well and good. And then it really becomes interesting. Rucks often feature pretty high, and it just depends. You can have, you can be setting up pretty well. Then your mate takes this guy here, takes Gorn, takes Rewalt there, and all of a sudden you're well set up, and now you've got to start thinking, and you've got 2 minutes. So the live draft is really interesting and keeps you on your toes. And it does set you up for the whole season. It's good fun because it is like draft day at the AFL clubs. It sets you up for the whole season. So I reckon that's pretty much all that's involved with SuperCoach Draft. Try and get your mates involved. I would endorse getting there on the one day. It's certainly much more fun. You can make a draft night of it, and certainly that's good fun. Head along to my Facebook page as well if you like. So there it is right there. Got a few scheduled, a few things there. Obviously the wrap up of last weekend. Most of you probably would have seen that by now. But as you can see, Shorty SuperCoach is the one to go. Just type that in nice and easy. I probably won't put a link in just because, it's pretty easy what you got to type. It's right there on the screen. But all good and well. I'll probably go back to watching the last few minutes of Geelong and Adelaide there. Listen to most on the radio, but good that this fella uploads a fair bit of stuff. So there's a free plug for him. I don't even know the bloke, but he's certainly good at uploading footy stuff pretty quickly. So that's all for me anyway. Hopefully the Camtasia video style of video has come across pretty well, but I'll be interested to watch it back myself actually. Normally just doing the podcast, so it's something a little bit different. hopefully some people, enjoy it, that my face is on there from time to time, because I've had a couple of comments where it's like, oh, why don't you do a video? But so probably good to have a couple. I don't know how often I'll use it. Podcast is just much easier for me, and I don't have an actual camera, but downloading this does make it a bit easier. So I'll look to incorporate it a little bit, I would say. But other than that, subscribe to the channel as always, comment if you enjoyed it, give it a like of course, and yeah, it'd be great to see your feedback on how this has come across as well. If you want to see more of these types of videos, certainly let me know as well. I'll probably maybe do something similar with the captaincy loophole as well, because it's good to kind of walk it through and go like that, and it's just a bit easier visually. And I might even do the press conferences across here as well. That might come across a little bit better, but I'll have to wait and see. Some videos it'll be easier to do than others. I think I'll just keep my player profiles nice and simple. I have a few more of those coming through over the next few days, so stay tuned for those. Get along to the Facebook page, give my channel a like of course, get stuck into that. Plenty of subscribers coming on board lately. I'll get involved on the notifications there pretty soon. So 558, that's pretty good. No, I've been pleased with how it's coming along. But yeah, I'll get along to those few Facebook messages as well. Get stuck into those. I'm on holidays now, so as you can see, looking pretty casual. So I'll get stuck into a few of those comments and answer you guys pretty soon. But thanks for tuning in. Subscribe to the channel. I'll catch you soon.